What's going on? It's Jason Heath, and if you're looking to get into 2-octave scales, particularly if you play jazz, the F major scale is a great place to start. One of the beautiful things about F major is that it lives in half position, or it can. So I've got 2 fingerings for this scale, just like I'm doing for every other scale. The first one is the simplest option I can think of. It stays in half position, goes all the way across the strings to the G string, and then goes up the bass. The second option is a little more complicated, but it can be transferred to other scales more easily. I'm building a playlist of all 12 2-octave major scales. I will link up to that in the card, so check that out. And I've also got a PDF of all 12 2-octave major scales with these fingerings that we're doing linked in the description below. We'll start with the first option. I'll play it, I'll teach it, do the same thing for the second option and the arpeggio fingering. You can skip around in the time codes in the description. Let's dive in. Okay, option 1. This is the standard meat and potatoes F major fingering. I've been using this my entire life, and like I said in the intro, it's so great for jazz because we spend so much time in the keys of F, B flat, right? And so those are half position keys for sure. Now, the thing I have run into time and time again with students, especially more beginner students, but even a little bit more advanced students, is this want or need or whatever to go into first position for the D and the G string. So this is what it would look like. Then they shift. Now, why do they do that? Well, if they're approaching the bass from a typical kind of classical background, like I did, like you might be too, we spend so much time in first position. So we're used to putting that first finger on A, we're used to having that first finger on B, so I understand that. And this E right here, this is one of the very first notes that you learn to play close in your school orchestra. So I get why people do that. However, I would recommend that people get used to staying in half position because it's more efficient. We want to be lazy as bass players. Maybe that's a bad way of putting it, but we want to shift as little as possible. That's always a challenge on the bass because we can only play 2 notes without either shifting to a new position or crossing strings. I highly recommend that people get in the habit of staying in half position, even though they might be used to putting first finger on these notes. If you can train yourself or you can train your student to play 2-4 on these notes on the D and the G string, you're going to be in good shape. Another thing I see beginners on the bass or people new to 2-octave scales do is when they get to the top, they'll play E, F, 1, 2. Now, can you do it? Sure, just like you can play 1, 2 on these notes on the D and the G string down low. But it really is a little less efficient unless we're going to keep going up the bass because this is more distance than this. That's all it is. Unless we have a good reason to do otherwise, I generally like to end up on my 4th finger or the highest numbered finger, 3rd finger in thumb position or that kind of thing, and then go down and end up on my lowest finger. Just because I'm trying to be as efficient as possible. Do I break those rules? Oh yeah, all the time. They're more guidelines than rules, but I think it's really healthy to get comfortable playing 2-4. Now, why people do 1-2 is also kind of rooted in that classical background that a lot of people are in. For a lot of people, their first 2-octave scale on the bass is G because it's fairly straightforward. And by the way, I've done a video about that. I'll link up to that in the card here so you can check out that scale. G, we have E natural and F sharp. So we play 1, 4, and then usually 3 or something like that to play the harmonic for the G. So people are trained to find that E with 1. A couple of habits that, especially if you have a classical background, you may find yourself needing to break for this fingering are just staying in half position and playing 2-4 up top. Okay, option 2. Yes, it's more challenging than option 1, but it is a template fingering like I talked about in the C major video, which I'll link up to here too if you haven't checked that out. And the template fingering concept, I recommend you get comfortable with that because it's going to make your life a lot easier, especially as you start getting into more of the prickly keys. Notice I have a different type of fingering for the notes on the E string than I do on the notes for the A string, even though they're the same intervals. I have whole step, shift to a whole step, play a half step. And for this on the E string, I play 1-4, 2-4. So para notes, para notes. Then I go to the A string and I play 1-4, but then I do 1-2. So I seem to be breaking my fingering rule from option 1, right? Well, not exactly, because I am going to keep going in this position and play the second octave of the F major scale using a sort of electric bass type fingering. And this used to be a little controversial in the bass world, especially when I was starting out. It's gotten much more accepted, but there was a fear in the bass world of using third finger unless you're in thumb position. There's still a little bit of that around, but I highly recommend you give it a spin and see what you think. By the time we get to the neck block right here on the bass, the notes are so much closer together. They're not too different from if you were down on electric bass in the first 4 frets. You can play with just a slight rolling or pivoting motion all of the notes just like you would on the electric bass. So if we can play like that, why not have it as an option? And that's why I throw this in here for option 2. I do have to let my hand pivot just slightly to get these notes, but I'm pretending I'm playing electric bass now with 1 finger for each fret. So we play F with 2, 4 on G, and by the way, you can check your open G, and it's gonna be going crazy if it's in tune. A lot of people play this a little flat, so just guard against that. 2, 4. Then we go to the D string, we play 1, 2, little pivot to 4, G string, 1, little pivot to 3, 4. And this allows us to play much faster than we could if we were doing all these little shifts. So I like this fingering. It combines a couple of 4-note templates down low and then this pivoting, shiftless scale kind of approach for the second octave. The arpeggio fingering, it's an arpeggio fingering. I can't get excited about it, but it does use the open A to good effect. So we play low F. As we play A, we shift. And it might seem strange to play this C here on the E string, and it might not sound that great on your bass. It's really not the world's most beautiful note anyway on the bass. Although you'll notice, if I really am on it, I'm getting my G string to ring. And if I'm a little off, no ring. Aiming a little on the sharp side tends to make people play that in tune. This has been my experience. Maybe think a little higher in pitch when you're learning on that. So we use the A string to get up there. We play F in half position, open A, play C, and now we're on easy street. We just go across, play 2 on F, then 1, 4 on C, and I just roll my fingers over to the F. Coming back down, it's the reverse process. Coming down, I kind of hop more than roll. So I roll going up, little hop going down, go back to A, F, C right here, open A, low F. Whether you're brand new to 2-octave scales or you're just trying to hone your chops and take your playing to the next level, it's so important to take your time, be patient with yourself, be kind to yourself. Learning is a long game, but if you're persistent and you put in that time, you work on your intonation, you focus on tone, always paying attention to good tone, record yourself, make this a part of your daily practice for bass and life, you will be amazed at the results that you get. If you're looking to take your scale game to the next level, check out my video of Hal Robinson's incredible scale book, Strokin'. It is my absolute favorite scale book. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.